The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Jasmine pushed her cleaning cart down the marble hallway of Sterling Industries. It was nearly midnight, and the towering glass building was empty except for the security guards and the cleaning crew. Her hands were raw from the harsh chemicals, and her back ached from bending over desks and trash cans for 12 hours straight. But she needed this job. She needed every dollar to keep her small apartment and to send money back home to her sick mother. As she approached the executive conference room on the 40th floor, she heard voices and laughter spilling out from behind the heavy oak doors. The board meeting had run late, and the wealthy executives were still inside, probably celebrating another successful quarter while she cleaned up their mess. Jasmine tried to be quiet as she emptied the waste baskets near the door, but their conversation was loud and careless. "You should have seen the look on that waitress's face when I told her the tip was already included," one voice said, followed by cruel laughter. "These people never learn their place." Jasmine's jaw tightened, but she kept working. She had heard worse from these men in their expensive suits who treated her like she was invisible. They talked about their vacations to Europe, their new cars, their children's private schools, all while she scrubbed their floors and emptied their trash. Speaking of putting people in their place, another voice chimed in. This one belonged to Richard Sterling, the CEO's younger brother and head of marketing. "I have the most brilliant idea for the charity gala next week." The room fell quiet, waiting for him to continue. Jasmine found herself listening despite trying not to. There was something in his tone that made her stomach turn with unease. "You know that cleaning lady who's always here at night? The tall black one with the attitude?" Richard continued, his voice dripping with malice. "I'm going to invite her to the gala as my guest." The silence broke into shocked murmurs and then explosive laughter. Jasmine's blood ran cold as she realized they were talking about her. "Richard, you can't be serious," someone gasped between laughs. "The annual Sterling Foundation Gala? With all those society people and investors?" "Oh, I'm completely serious," Richard replied, clearly enjoying the reaction. "Can you imagine? Her showing up in whatever cheap dress she can afford, completely out of place among the elite of this city? It'll be the entertainment of the evening. We'll all have a good laugh watching her try to fit in with people who actually matter." "But why would she even accept?" another voice asked. "Surely she knows it's a setup." "That's the beautiful part," Richard said, his voice getting more excited. "She won't be able to resist. These people always think they deserve more than they have. She'll see it as her big chance to play dress up and pretend she belongs in our world. The invitation will be so perfectly worded, so seemingly sincere, that her pride won't let her refuse." Jasmine's hands shook as she gripped the handle of her cleaning cart. She wanted to burst through those doors and tell them exactly what she thought of their cruel game. But she couldn't afford to lose this job. She had bills to pay and a mother who depended on her. So she stood there in the hallway, listening to them plan her humiliation like it was a board strategy meeting. "What if she actually cleans up well?" someone asked nervously. "What if she doesn't embarrass herself?" Richard's laughter was cold and calculating. "Trust me, there's no amount of makeup or fancy dress that can hide what she really is. She's a cleaning lady, and everyone will see right through whatever act she tries to put on. The best part is, she'll probably be so grateful for the invitation that she'll work even harder for us afterward, hoping for more scraps from our table." The conversation continued, with each man adding his own cruel suggestions about how to make Jasmine's evening as uncomfortable as possible. They talked about seating her at the worst table, making sure the photographers caught her mistakes, and having security keep a close eye on her in case she tried to steal something. Jasmine had heard enough. She quietly finished emptying the trash and moved down the hallway, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to quit right then and there, to walk out of the building and never come back. But another part of her, a part that had been buried under years of exhaustion and financial stress, began to stir with something she hadn't felt in a long time: defiance. As she cleaned the rest of the floor, Jasmine thought about her life before this job. She thought about the college degree hanging on her bedroom wall, the dreams she had put aside, and the woman she used to be before circumstances forced her into this role. These men saw her as nothing more than hired help, someone to be mocked and dismissed. They had no idea who she really was or what she was capable of. By the time she finished her shift at 6 a.m., Jasmine had made a decision that would change everything. She was going to accept Richard Sterling's invitation. But not for the reasons he expected. She was going to show him and everyone else at that gala exactly what kind of woman they had underestimated. The morning sun was rising over the city as Jasmine walked to the bus stop, her mind already working on a plan. She had 1 week to prepare, 1 week to transform herself from the invisible cleaning lady into someone who would command attention and respect. It wouldn't be easy, and it certainly wouldn't be cheap, but she was determined to make it happen. She thought about her mother, who had raised her to be strong and proud despite the challenges they faced. She thought about all the nights she had spent studying while working multiple jobs to pay for college. She thought about the dreams she had been forced to postpone but never abandon. Richard Sterling and his friends thought they were setting up the perfect humiliation. They had no idea they were actually giving her the perfect opportunity for revenge. Not the kind of revenge that would hurt them physically or financially, but something much more powerful. The chance to prove them completely wrong about who she was and what she deserved. As the bus arrived and Jasmine climbed aboard, she caught her reflection in the window. Beneath the tired eyes and work-worn clothes, she could see glimpses of the confident, educated woman she had once been. That woman was still there, just waiting for the right moment to emerge. The cruel laughter from the conference room still echoed in her ears, but now it fueled her determination rather than her despair. In 1 week, Richard Sterling and his friends would get the surprise of their lives. They thought they were inviting a simple cleaning lady to be their evening's entertainment. They had no idea they were about to meet a queen. Jasmine sat in her small studio apartment, staring at the elegant cream-colored envelope that had been delivered to her workplace that afternoon. Her name was written in perfect calligraphy across the front, Miss Jasmine Washington. Inside, the invitation was even more beautiful than she had expected, printed on thick paper that probably cost more than she made in a week. The Sterling Foundation cordially invites you to our annual charity gala, it read in flowing script. Please join us for an evening of elegance and philanthropy as we celebrate another year of giving back to our community. Black tie required. Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Grand Ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton. At the bottom, in what appeared to be handwritten text, was a personal note, Miss Washington, it would be my absolute pleasure to have you as my guest for this special evening. Your hard work and dedication have not gone unnoticed. Sincerely, Richard Sterling. Even knowing the truth behind the invitation, Jasmine had to admit it was convincing. If she hadn't overheard that conversation in the conference room, she might have actually believed Richard Sterling was being sincere. The wording was perfect, hitting just the right notes of recognition and respect to make someone feel genuinely valued. She set the invitation down on her small kitchen table and looked around her apartment. The space was tiny but clean, furnished with pieces she had found at thrift stores and discount outlets. Her college diploma hung on the wall next to a photo of her and her mother taken on graduation day. That had been 5 years ago, when she still believed her business degree would open doors to a better life. The financial crisis had hit just as she was entering the job market. The corporate position she had been promised fell through when the company downsized. Her mother's cancer diagnosis came 6 months later, wiping out what little savings they had and forcing Jasmine to take whatever work she could find to pay for treatments and medication. Cleaning office buildings wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to cover rent and send money home. She had told herself it was temporary, just until her mother got better and the economy improved. But temporary had stretched into years, and somewhere along the way, she had started to believe that this was all she deserved. Until tonight. Until she heard those men laughing about her in that conference room, talking about her like she was something they had scraped off their shoes. Jasmine picked up her phone and dialed her mother's number. It rang 3 times before the familiar voice answered, stronger than it had been in months. "Baby, is everything okay? You don't usually call this late." "I'm fine, Mama. I just wanted to hear your voice." Jasmine settled back in her chair, feeling some of the tension leave her shoulders. "How are you feeling?" "Much better, thank you. The new medication is working well, and Dr. Johnson says the latest tests look good." Her mother's voice was warm with relief. "I've been thinking about coming to visit you soon. I know you've been working so hard to take care of me, and I want to see where my daughter lives." Jasmine looked around her modest apartment and felt a pang of shame. "It's not much, Mama. Just a small place." "Any place where my daughter lives is beautiful to me," her mother replied firmly. "Jasmine, you know I'm proud of you, don't you? I know this isn't what you planned for your life, but the way you've sacrificed for me, the strength you've shown, that's the mark of a truly exceptional woman." Tears pricked at Jasmine's eyes. "Sometimes I feel like I've let you down. Like I've let myself down. Listen to me, baby girl," her mother's voice became serious. "You are brilliant, you are beautiful, and you are worthy of every good thing in this world. Don't you ever let anyone make you feel otherwise. Sometimes life knocks us down, but it's not about how hard the fall is. It's about how gracefully we get back up." After they hung up, Jasmine sat in the quiet of her apartment, her mother's words echoing in her mind. She picked up the invitation again and read it carefully. Richard Sterling thought he was setting a trap, but maybe he was actually giving her exactly what she needed, a chance to get back up. She opened her laptop and began researching. The Sterling Foundation Gala was one of the most exclusive events in the city, attended by politicians, business leaders, and celebrities. The charity raised money for underprivileged children's education, which made the executives' cruel game even more ironic. They were supposed to be supporting people who deserved better opportunities, yet they were planning to humiliate someone for sport. Jasmine started making lists. She would need a dress, shoes, accessories, and hair and makeup done professionally. Even shopping at discount stores and calling in favors, it would cost more money than she had. But she had been saving every penny she could for the past 2 years, building an emergency fund in case her mother's condition worsened. This felt like an emergency of a different kind. An emergency of dignity and self-respect. She opened her online banking app and looked at her savings balance. It was enough, barely, if she was smart about it. She could buy a dress from a department store clearance rack, find shoes that were elegant but affordable, and maybe trade some of her cleaning services for professional hair and makeup. But as she sat there planning, Jasmine realized that approaching this like a desperate woman trying to fake her way into high society was exactly what Richard Sterling expected. He wanted her to show up looking like she was playing dress-up, confirming all his assumptions about who she was and where she belonged. What if she took a different approach entirely? Jasmine closed her laptop and pulled out a pen and paper. Instead of trying to disguise herself as someone else, what if she simply revealed who she really was? She had let these people see only one side of her for so long that they had forgotten she was a complete human being with her own story, her own intelligence, and her own worth. She started writing down everything she remembered from her business classes, all the knowledge and skills that had been gathering dust while she pushed a mop and emptied trash cans. She thought about the presentations she had given in college, the leadership roles she had taken on, and the confidence she had once possessed. That woman was still inside her. She had just been hiding, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Jasmine spent the rest of the night planning, not just her outfit and appearance, but her strategy. She would go to this gala, but not as the grateful cleaning lady they expected. She would go as the educated, accomplished woman she truly was, ready to remind everyone in that room that worth wasn't determined by job titles or bank account balances. By the time the sun came up, Jasmine had made her decision completely. She was going to accept Richard Sterling's invitation, but the joke was going to be on him. He thought he was inviting a simple cleaning lady to provide entertainment for his wealthy friends. Instead, he had just invited a force of nature who was done being invisible. She picked up the invitation one more time and smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling," she said aloud to her empty apartment. "This is exactly what I needed." The next week was going to change everything. Jasmine woke up on Monday morning with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She had 6 days to transform herself from the invisible cleaning lady into someone who could command respect in any room. It wasn't going to be easy, but she had a plan. Her first stop was the public library, where she spent 2 hours researching everything she could about the Sterling Foundation Gala. She found photos from previous years, studied the guest lists, and read articles about the charity's mission. Knowledge was power, and she intended to be the most informed person in that ballroom. Next, she made a list of everyone she knew who might be able to help her. After years of cleaning offices, she had built relationships with people throughout the city. There was Maria, who worked at an upscale salon and had always been kind to her. James, a photographer who had built his studio from nothing, often worked late and they had shared many conversations during her cleaning rounds. And Mrs. Chen, who owned a boutique dress shop and had once mentioned that her daughter was around Jasmine's age. Jasmine started with Maria. She found the salon during lunch break and waited nervously in the elegant lobby until Maria appeared from the back room, her face lighting up with surprise and warmth. "Jasmine. What brings you here, honey? And why do you look so serious?" "I need your help, Maria. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I've been invited to the Sterling Foundation Gala this Saturday, and I need to look." Jasmine paused, searching for the right words. "I need to look like I belong there." Maria's eyebrows shot up. "The Sterling Gala? Girl, that's like the event of the year. How did you get invited to that?" Jasmine had prepared for this question. "It's complicated, but let's just say someone underestimated me, and I intend to prove them wrong." Something in Jasmine's tone must have conveyed the seriousness of the situation because Maria's expression shifted from curiosity to determination. "Okay, I can see this is important to you. What do you need?" "Hair and makeup. Professional level. I can pay, but not at full salon prices. I was hoping maybe we could work out a trade. I know you hate cleaning your apartment, and I could." "Stop right there," Maria interrupted, holding up her hand. "First of all, you're not paying me anything. Second, we're going to do more than just hair and makeup. We're going to give you the full transformation." She looked Jasmine up and down with the eye of a professional. "Saturday morning, you be here at 9 a.m. I'll have everything ready." Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. "Maria, I can't ask you to do that for free. This is your business. Honey, do you know how many times you've stayed late to help me when I spilled something in my office, or listened to me complain about my ex-boyfriend, or just been a friendly face when I was having a bad day? This isn't charity. This is friendship." Next, Jasmine visited Mrs. Chen's boutique. The older woman was arranging a display of evening gowns when Jasmine walked in, and she looked up with a puzzled expression. The boutique was clearly expensive, far beyond what Jasmine could normally afford. "Can I help you, dear?" Mrs. Chen asked politely. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Jasmine. I clean the office building where your accountant works. We've talked a few times when I'm working late and you're there reviewing books." Recognition dawned on the woman's face. "Oh yes, of course. The young lady who's always reading. What brings you here?" Jasmine took a deep breath and explained her situation, carefully editing out the cruel motivation behind the invitation. Mrs. Chen listened intently, her expression growing more thoughtful with each detail. "So you need a gown suitable for the Sterling Gala, but your budget is limited," Mrs. Chen summarized when Jasmine finished. "I know it's a long shot, but I thought maybe you might have something from last season, or a return that didn't work out, something that might be in my price range." Mrs. Chen walked over to a rack in the back corner of the store and began flipping through the dresses. "What size are you, dear?" 8, sometimes a 10 depending on the cut." Mrs. Chen pulled out a dress that made Jasmine's breath catch. It was a deep emerald green, elegant but not overly flashy, with clean lines that would flatter without being too revealing. This came in for a customer who changed her mind after it was tailored. It's been hanging here for 2 months, and it's exactly your size. It's beautiful, Jasmine whispered, reaching out to touch the fabric. But I'm sure it's more than I can afford. Mrs. Chen looked at the price tag and then at Jasmine. Tell me something, dear. What do you plan to do after this gala? Do you intend to keep cleaning offices forever? The question caught Jasmine off guard. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. I've been so focused on just surviving, on taking care of my mother, that I stopped thinking about what I actually wanted. May I give you some advice? Mrs. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. I came to this country with nothing 40 years ago. I worked in factories, cleaned houses, did whatever I had to do. Support my family. But I never stopped believing that I deserved more. I saved every penny, learned everything I could, and eventually opened this shop. She held up the dress, examining it in the light. Sometimes, we have to invest in ourselves before we can expect others to invest in us. This dress. It's not just fabric and thread. It's confidence. It's armor. It's a statement that you deserve to be in that room with those people. But the price is what you can afford to pay, Mrs. Chen said firmly. And in return, I want you to promise me something. After this gala, whatever happens, you'll start thinking about what you really want from your life. You'll start believing that you deserve more than just survival. Tears were flowing freely now, and Jasmine nodded, unable to speak. Good. Now, let's talk about shoes and accessories. By Thursday, everything was coming together. James had offered to take professional headshots of her in exchange for some cleaning work at his studio. He had also given her tips on posture and confidence that he had learned from working with models and actors. The key is to walk like you own the room, he explained as he adjusted the lighting for her photos. Not arrogant, but confident. Like you have every right to be there, because you do. Friday evening, Jasmine spent time at the library again, not just researching the gala but reviewing business principles and current events. She wanted to be able to hold intelligent conversations with anyone she might meet. She practiced introducing herself, not as a cleaning lady, but as Jasmine Washington, business graduate and accomplished professional who happened to be between corporate positions. It wasn't a lie. It was simply a different way of framing her truth. That night, she laid out everything she would need for the next day. The emerald dress hung on her closet door like a promise. The shoes Mrs. Chen had found to match were comfortable enough to dance in but elegant enough for the fanciest ballroom. Simple but beautiful jewelry borrowed from Maria completed the ensemble. But the most important transformation had already begun. Looking in the mirror, Jasmine could see the confident woman she used to be starting to emerge. The woman who had graduated summa cum laude, who had led student organizations and impressed professors, who had dreams and ambitions beyond just getting by. That woman had been hiding for too long. Tomorrow night, she was going to remind the world that she existed. As Jasmine fell asleep, she thought about Richard Sterling and his friends, probably spending their evening congratulating themselves on their clever joke. They were expecting to see a cleaning lady playing dress-up, someone they could laugh at and dismiss. Instead, they were about to meet a force they had never encountered before, a brilliant, beautiful, determined woman who had absolutely nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Saturday arrived with clear skies and perfect weather, as if the universe was conspiring to make everything perfect for Jasmine's transformation. She woke up early, despite having barely slept, and spent the morning moving through her preparation routine with calm determination. At the salon, Maria had assembled a small team of her most talented colleagues. "Ladies," she announced as Jasmine walked in, "meet the star of tonight's show. We're going to make magic happen." The transformation took 4 hours. First came the hair. Jasmine's natural curls were styled into an elegant updo that showcased her graceful neck and highlighted her bone structure. Maria worked with the skill of an artist, creating something that looked effortless but was clearly the result of professional expertise. "Your hair is gorgeous," Maria murmured as she worked. "Why do you always wear it pulled back so severely?" "It's easier for work," Jasmine replied, watching herself change in the mirror. "I got used to hiding it." "Well, tonight we're not hiding anything." The makeup was next, applied with careful precision to enhance Jasmine's natural beauty rather than mask it. Her eyes, always her best feature, were highlighted with subtle smoky tones that made them appear larger and more luminous. Her full lips were painted in a classic red that complemented the emerald dress perfectly. When they were finished, Jasmine stared at herself in the mirror with amazement. She looked like herself, but the best possible version, confident, elegant, and undeniably beautiful. "Girl," Maria said, standing back to admire their work, "you are going to stop traffic tonight." Back at her apartment, Jasmine carefully put on the emerald dress. It fit like it had been made for her, hugging her curves in all the right places while maintaining an air of sophisticated elegance. The color brought out the golden undertones in her dark skin and made her eyes sparkle. She slipped on the matching shoes, added the simple but elegant jewelry, and took one final look in her full-length mirror. The woman looking back at her was a stranger and yet completely familiar. This was who she had always been underneath the uniform and the exhaustion and the years of just surviving. The car she had splurged on, a town car with a professional driver, arrived precisely at 6:30. As they drove through the city toward the Ritz-Carlton, Jasmine practiced her breathing and ran through everything she had prepared. She knew about the charity's mission, had researched many of the expected guests, and had prepared intelligent talking points about current events and business trends. But more importantly, she had prepared herself mentally. She was not going to this gala as Richard Sterling's idea of entertainment. She was going as herself. Jasmine Washington, a woman of intelligence, dignity, and strength who deserved respect. The Ritz-Carlton was ablaze with lights as they approached. Elegant couples were walking up the red carpet leading to the main entrance, photographers capturing the arrivals of the city's elite. Jasmine's heart began to race, but she forced herself to stay calm. "This is it, miss," the driver said, pulling up to the curb. "Would you like me to wait and take you home later?" "Yes, please," Jasmine replied, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. "I'll call when I'm ready." The driver came around to open her door, and Jasmine stepped out onto the red carpet. The evening air was perfect, warm but not humid, with a gentle breeze that made her dress flutter elegantly around her legs. For a moment, she paused, looking up at the magnificent hotel and the crowd of beautifully dressed people making their way inside. This was really happening. After years of being invisible, of being talked about but never listened to, she was about to walk into a room full of the most powerful people in the city. And she belonged there. Jasmine took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and began walking toward the entrance. Her heels clicked confidently on the pavement, and she kept her shoulders back and her head high, just as James had taught her. She walked like she owned the red carpet, because tonight, she did. The photographers, who had been idly snapping pictures of the various arrivals, suddenly became more animated. Camera flashes began going off around her, and she could hear murmurs of speculation about who she was. She smiled serenely and continued walking, neither rushing nor slowing down. "Excuse me, miss," one photographer called out. "Could we get your name for the caption?" "Jasmine Washington," she replied clearly, her voice carrying easily in the evening air. At the entrance, a uniformed attendant checked her invitation and smiled professionally. "Good evening, Miss Washington. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. Please enjoy the gala." Jasmine stepped through the doors and into the most elegant space she had ever seen. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton was transformed into something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables decorated with white linens and elaborate floral arrangements. The city's elite mingled in small groups, their conversations creating a sophisticated hum punctuated by laughter and the soft clinking of champagne glasses. For just a moment, Jasmine felt a flutter of uncertainty. These people all seemed to know each other, moving through the room with the ease of those who had been attending events like this their entire lives. Their clothes were clearly expensive, their jewelry probably worth more than she made in a year. But then she remembered her mother's words, "You are worthy of every good thing in this world." She thought about Mrs. Chen's advice about investing in herself. She thought about Maria's friendship and James's encouragement. Most of all, she thought about those cruel voices in the conference room, planning to humiliate her for their own amusement. Jasmine straightened her shoulders and walked into the room like she had been attending galas her entire life. The reaction was immediate. Conversations paused as she passed, heads turned to follow her progress, and she could feel the weight of curious gazes. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and continued moving through the crowd, listening to the conversations around her and looking for familiar faces from her research. She was halfway across the room when she heard a sharp intake of breath behind her. Jesus Christ, is that? It can't be. It is. It's the cleaning lady. Jasmine turned around slowly and found herself face to face with Richard Sterling and 3 of his executive friends. They were staring at her with expressions of shock and disbelief, their mouths literally hanging open. "Good evening, Mr. Sterling," Jasmine said calmly, her voice pitched just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Thank you so much for the invitation. This is a beautiful event." Richard Sterling was speechless, his face cycling through a range of emotions from shock to confusion to something that might have been embarrassment. He had clearly expected to see a very different version of Jasmine tonight. Yes, of course," he stammered finally. "You look different." "Thank you," Jasmine replied with a gracious smile. "I hope you'll excuse me. I see someone I'd like to meet." She turned and walked away, leaving the 4 men standing there like statues. Behind her, she could hear frantic whispered conversations breaking out, but she didn't look back. The night was just getting started, and Jasmine was ready for whatever came next. As Jasmine moved through the ballroom, she could feel the shift in energy around her. Word was spreading quickly through the crowd, the mysterious beauty in emerald green wasn't just another socialite or politician's daughter. She was someone completely unexpected, and that made her the most interesting person in the room. She approached a small group discussing the charity's latest initiatives, drawing on her research to ask intelligent questions about their educational programs. The conversation flowed naturally, and she found herself genuinely enjoying the exchange of ideas. These weren't all shallow rich people, she realized. Many of them were genuinely committed to making a difference. "You seem very knowledgeable about childhood education policy," remarked Dr. Patricia Williams, the charity's program director. "Are you involved in the field professionally?" "I have a business degree with a focus on nonprofit management," Jasmine replied smoothly. "I'm currently between positions, but I'm very interested in the intersection between business strategy and social impact." It wasn't a lie. It was simply a way of presenting her truth that emphasized her qualifications rather than her current circumstances. Dr. Williams looked impressed. "We should talk more about that. I'd love to get your thoughts on some of our new initiatives." As the conversation continued, Jasmine became aware of someone watching her intently. She glanced around and caught sight of a tall man with dark hair and striking green eyes standing near the bar. He was handsome in a way that suggested good genes and expensive grooming, wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than she made in several months. There was something different about the way he was looking at her, though. While other guests seemed curious or surprised, his expression was one of genuine interest and admiration. When their eyes met across the room, he smiled and raised his champagne glass in a small salute. Jasmine felt her cheeks warm slightly but maintained her composure. She excused herself from the group and moved toward the silent auction displays, pretending to study the various items up for bid while she tried to figure out who the mysterious admirer might be. The art collection is particularly impressive this year, a voice said beside her. She turned to find the green-eyed stranger standing next to her, studying a painting of a sunset over the ocean. Up close, he was even more attractive, with the kind of easy confidence that came from a lifetime of privilege. But there was something genuine in his manner that set him apart from Richard Sterling and his crowd. "It is beautiful," Jasmine agreed, looking back at the painting. "Though I have to admit, I'm more interested in the educational scholarships." "A woman of substance," he said with an approving nod. "I'm Ryan, by the way. Ryan Morgan." The name clicked immediately in Jasmine's mind. Ryan Morgan was the CEO of Sterling Industries, the man who had built the company from a small family business into a billion-dollar empire. He was also, she realized, Richard Sterling's older brother and the person who had the most power in the building where she worked. "Jasmine Washington," she replied, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Morgan." "Please, just Ryan," he said, taking her hand in both of his. His touch was warm and gentle, and he held her gaze as he spoke. "And the pleasure is entirely mine. I have to say, you're the most interesting person I've met at one of these events in years." "That's quite a compliment, considering the caliber of guests here tonight." "Oh, you'd be surprised," Ryan said with a slight smile. "Sometimes the most interesting people are the ones you least expect." The orchestra began playing, and couples started moving toward the dance floor. Ryan turned to her with a hopeful expression. "Would you do me the honor of dancing with me, Jasmine?" She hesitated for just a moment. Dancing with the CEO of Sterling Industries wasn't part of her plan for the evening. But something in his manner, the genuine warmth in his eyes, made her want to say yes. "I'd be delighted." Ryan offered his arm and led her onto the dance floor. The music was a classic waltz, elegant and timeless, and Jasmine was grateful for the dance lessons her mother had insisted on when she was younger. As Ryan's hand settled on her waist and she placed her hand on his shoulder, she felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with nerves. He was an excellent dancer, leading with confidence but never trying to overpower her movements. They moved together naturally, as if they had been dancing together for years. "You're full of surprises," Ryan murmured as they glided across the floor. "Beautiful, intelligent, and you dance like a professional." "My mother believed every young lady should know how to dance properly," Jasmine replied, trying to ignore the way her heart was racing. "She said you never know when you might need the skill." "Smart woman. I'd like to meet her sometime." The comment was casual, but something in his tone suggested he meant it seriously. Jasmine looked up at him, studying his face for any sign that he was just making polite conversation. Instead, she saw genuine interest and something else she couldn't quite identify. Around them, other couples were dancing, but Jasmine was barely aware of them. The rest of the ballroom seemed to fade away as she lost herself in the rhythm of the music and the warmth of Ryan's presence. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen and appreciated, not for what she could do for someone else but simply for who she was. "Tell me about yourself, Jasmine," Ryan said as they turned gracefully together. "What do you do when you're not attending charity galas?" The question brought her back to reality with a sharp jolt. This was the moment she had been dreading. When she would have to explain her current situation to this successful, wealthy man who clearly lived in a completely different world. "It's complicated," she said carefully. "I'm in a transition period right now, figuring out my next steps." "Aren't we all?" Ryan replied with an understanding smile. "I took over the family business 5 years ago, and I'm still figuring out how to balance growth with social responsibility. Sometimes the path forward isn't as clear as we'd like it to be." His response surprised her. She had expected him to press for more details or to lose interest when she didn't immediately reveal an impressive career. Instead, he seemed to understand that life wasn't always straightforward. "What made you decide to focus on education with the foundation?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Personal experience," Ryan said, his expression becoming more serious. I was lucky enough to be born into privilege, but I've seen too many brilliant people never get the opportunities they deserve because of circumstances beyond their control. Education is the great equalizer, or at least it should be. The song was winding down, but neither of them made any move to leave the dance floor. When the orchestra began the next piece, they simply continued dancing, their conversation flowing as smoothly as their movements. "You speak like someone who cares deeply about social justice," Jasmine observed. "That's not always a popular position in business circles." "Profit without purpose is just greed," Ryan replied firmly. "I believe companies have a responsibility to lift up the communities they operate in. Not everyone agrees with me, but I'm not interested in building wealth just for the sake of having more money." Jasmine felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't the conversation she had expected to have with a billionaire CEO. Ryan Morgan was nothing like his brother or the other executives she had overheard making cruel jokes. He seemed genuinely committed to making a positive difference in the world. "That's a refreshing perspective," she said softly. "Coming from you, that means a lot," Ryan replied, spinning her gently before pulling her back into his arms. "I have a feeling you know exactly what I'm talking about." The way he said it made Jasmine wonder if he somehow knew more about her background than he was letting on. But when she searched his face, she saw only warmth and genuine interest. As the second song ended, Ryan reluctantly stepped back, though he kept hold of her hand. "Would you like to get some air?" he asked. "The terrace has a beautiful view of the city." Jasmine nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Everything about this evening was turning out differently than she had planned. She had come here to prove a point to Richard Sterling and his friends, to show them that they had underestimated her. She hadn't expected to find herself genuinely attracted to someone, especially not the CEO of the company where she worked. Ryan led her through the ballroom toward the French doors that opened onto a spacious terrace overlooking the city. As they walked, Jasmine was acutely aware of the stares and whispered conversations following them. The mysterious woman in emerald green dancing with Ryan Morgan was definitely going to be the talk of the evening. Behind them, she caught a glimpse of Richard Sterling watching with an expression of complete bewilderment. His cruel joke was backfiring in ways he could never have imagined. But as they stepped out into the cool evening air, Jasmine found she cared less about Richard Sterling's reaction and more about the man walking beside her. Ryan Morgan was proving to be everything she hadn't expected: kind, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in her as a person. The question was, what would happen when he found out who she really was? The terrace was quieter than the ballroom, with only a few other couples enjoying the cool evening air and the spectacular view of the city lights spread out below. Ryan led Jasmine to a quiet corner where they could talk without being overheard. "It's beautiful," Jasmine said, looking out over the glittering skyline. "I never get tired of seeing the city from up high." "You sound like you spend a lot of time in tall buildings," Ryan observed with a smile. Jasmine felt her stomach tighten. "You could say that." Ryan leaned against the terrace railing, studying her face in the soft glow of the outdoor lighting. "Jasmine, can I ask you something?" She nodded, though every instinct was telling her to be careful. "How do you know my brother Richard?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She had been so caught up in the magic of the evening, in the unexpected connection she felt with Ryan, that she had almost forgotten the ugly reality of why she was here. "Your brother," she said carefully, buying time while she figured out how to respond. "Richard Sterling. He mentioned that he had invited someone special tonight, someone who had impressed him with her work ethic and dedication. I'm guessing that was you." Jasmine's mind raced. Ryan clearly didn't know the truth about his brother's invitation or the cruel motivation behind it. The way he was looking at her suggested he believed Richard had invited her out of genuine admiration. "Mr. Morgan." "Ryan," she began, then stopped. How could she explain without destroying the perfect evening they had shared? How could she tell him that his brother had invited her as a joke, expecting her to embarrass herself and provide entertainment for his wealthy friends? "It's okay," Ryan said gently, seeming to sense her struggle. Whatever it is, you can tell me. Jasmine took a deep breath and made a decision. She was done hiding, done pretending to be someone she wasn't. If Ryan was going to judge her based on her current circumstances rather than who she was as a person, then better to find out now. I clean your building, she said quietly. The Sterling Industries Tower. I work the night shift, emptying trash cans and mopping floors. Your brother invited me here because he thought it would be funny to watch the cleaning lady try to fit in with high society. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Jasmine watched Ryan's face carefully, waiting for his expression to change, for the warmth in his eyes to turn to embarrassment or disgust. Instead, Ryan was quiet for a long moment, processing what she had told him. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with something she hadn't expected, anger. That bastard, he said quietly, his hands clenching into fists. I can't believe he would do something so cruel. You're not surprised? Jasmine asked, confused by his reaction. Surprised that my brother can be a petty, mean-spirited ass? Unfortunately, no. Ryan turned to face her fully, his expression intense. But I am surprised that someone could work in my building for what I'm guessing has been years, and I never noticed someone as remarkable as you. Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. You don't understand. I'm not remarkable. I'm just a cleaning lady who's been pretending to be something she's not all evening. Stop, Ryan said firmly, reaching out to take her hands. Don't you dare diminish yourself like that. Do you think your job defines who you are? Do you think I care what you do for work? Don't you? The question came out as barely a whisper. Jasmine, in the past 2 hours, you've shown me more intelligence, grace, and genuine warmth than I've encountered in years of these events. You've talked knowledgeably about education policy, social justice, and business strategy. You dance beautifully, you're clearly well educated, and you have a presence that commands attention from everyone in that room. He squeezed her hands gently. None of that has anything to do with what job you currently hold. That's just who you are. But I lied to you, Jasmine protested. I let you think I was someone I'm not. Did you? Because everything you told me was true, wasn't it? You do have a business degree. You are interested in nonprofit management. You are between positions. You just didn't mention that your current position involves cleaning instead of corner offices. Jasmine stared at him in amazement. Why aren't you embarrassed? Why aren't you worried about what people will think when they find out you were dancing with the help? Ryan's jaw tightened. Because I don't give a damn what people think. And because anyone who would judge you based on your job instead of your character isn't worth my time or respect. He moved closer, his voice becoming more intense. Jasmine, do you want to know what I see when I look at you? I see a woman who has clearly faced challenges and overcome them with dignity. I see someone who is intelligent and educated but humble enough to do whatever work is necessary to support herself and her family. I see strength and resilience and grace under pressure. How do you know about my family? She asked. Because you mentioned sending money home earlier, when you were talking to Dr. Williams about scholarship programs. You were advocating for students who come from families that sacrifice everything for their children's education. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that you were speaking from personal experience. Jasmine felt the walls she had built around her heart beginning to crumble. My mother has been sick. Cancer. All my savings went to her treatments, and I took whatever work I could find to pay the bills. I have a degree, I had plans, but life got in the way. And you think that makes you less worthy of respect? Ryan asked incredulously. Jasmine, you put your own dreams on hold to take care of your mother. You've been working multiple jobs to support someone you love, never complaining, never giving up. That doesn't make you a cleaning lady. That makes you a hero. The tears she had been holding back finally spilled over, and Ryan gently wiped them away with his thumb. Hey, no crying, he said softly. Not when you look so beautiful. I can't believe this is happening, Jasmine whispered. I came here tonight planning to prove a point to your brother and his friends. I wanted to show them that they had underestimated me. I never expected. Never expected what? She looked up into his green eyes, seeing warmth and genuine caring reflected there. I never expected to meet someone like you. Ryan smiled, the kind of smile that seemed to light up his entire face. Well, I definitely never expected Richard's cruel joke to introduce me to the most amazing woman I've ever met. What happens now? Jasmine asked. When we go back in there, when people find out who I really am. Now we go back in there and continue having a wonderful evening, Ryan said firmly. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can answer to me. He offered her his arm again, just as he had when they first went to dance. Besides, I haven't gotten to tell you the most important part yet. What's that? Tomorrow, I'm firing my current head of community outreach and offering you the position. That is, if you're interested in putting that business degree to work for something that matters. Jasmine's mouth fell open in shock. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I need someone who understands both business strategy and social impact, someone who genuinely cares about making a difference. Tonight, you've shown me that you're exactly what I've been looking for. As they walked back toward the ballroom, Jasmine felt like she was living in a dream. Everything she had thought she knew about her life, about her future, about what she deserved, was changing in the span of a single evening. Ryan, she said as they reached the French doors, what if this doesn't work? What if we're too different? He stopped and turned to face her, his expression serious but hopeful. Then we'll figure it out together. But Jasmine, I have a feeling we're more alike than you think. As they stepped back into the ballroom, Jasmine caught sight of Richard Sterling across the room, still staring at them with a mixture of confusion and disbelief. His cruel joke had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. But more importantly, it had led her to exactly where she was meant to be. As Ryan and Jasmine re-entered the ballroom, the energy in the room seemed to shift. Conversations that had been buzzing with speculation about the mysterious woman in emerald green took on a different tone as word began to spread about her true identity. Some guests looked intrigued, others appeared scandalized, and a few seemed genuinely delighted by the unexpected turn of events. Ryan kept his hand firmly on the small of Jasmine's back, a gesture of support and solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by the crowd. He moved through the room with the confident ease of someone who had never doubted his right to be anywhere, and his obvious admiration for Jasmine sent a clear message to everyone watching. Ryan, a voice called out from across the room. It was Richard Sterling, finally working up the courage to approach them directly. He was flanked by his usual group of executive friends, all of whom looked deeply uncomfortable. Richard, Ryan replied coolly as his brother approached. Enjoying the gala? Yes, well, it's certainly more interesting than usual, Richard said, his voice strained. His eyes kept darting to Jasmine, as if he couldn't quite believe she was the same person he had seen cleaning his office. I imagine it is, Ryan said dryly. Jasmine, have you met my brother Richard? Though I believe you two have already been introduced. The tension in Richard's posture was obvious to anyone watching. He had clearly not expected his cruel joke to result in his older brother spending the entire evening enchanted by the woman he had intended to humiliate. Yes, we've met, Richard managed. Miss Washington, you look different tonight. Thank you, Jasmine replied graciously, though her voice carried a subtle edge. It's amazing what proper lighting can do. Dr. Williams appeared at Jasmine's elbow, her face bright with excitement. Jasmine, I've been thinking about our conversation earlier. I'd love to set up a formal meeting to discuss your ideas about program evaluation and community engagement. Do you have a card? The request sent a ripple of surprise through Richard's group. Dr. Williams was one of the most respected voices in the nonprofit sector, and her obvious interest in Jasmine was lending serious credibility to the evening's revelations. I don't have cards with me tonight, Jasmine replied smoothly, but I'd be happy to contact your office next week. Perfect. Ryan, you should definitely consider having Jasmine consult on some of your corporate social responsibility initiatives. Her insights tonight have been absolutely brilliant. Ryan smiled. Actually, Patricia, I'm hoping to discuss a more permanent arrangement with Jasmine very soon. The comment sent another wave of whispers through the nearby guests. Richard's face was growing paler by the minute as he realized just how spectacularly his plan had backfired. Ryan, could I have a word? Richard said tightly. Privately. Of course, Ryan replied. He turned to Jasmine. Would you excuse me for just a moment? I believe Mrs. Henderson was hoping to discuss the scholarship program with you. As Ryan walked away with his brother, Jasmine was immediately surrounded by guests who had been waiting for their chance to meet the woman who had captured the CEO's attention. Mrs. Henderson, the wife of a prominent judge, was indeed interested in talking about scholarships, but Jasmine could tell that curiosity was driving much of the interest. My dear, you must tell us about yourself, Mrs. Henderson said warmly. Ryan seems absolutely smitten, and I haven't seen him show this much interest in anyone since his divorce. Meanwhile, across the room, the conversation between the Sterling brothers was growing heated despite their attempts to keep their voices low. What the hell do you think you're doing? Richard hissed. Do you have any idea who that woman is? I know exactly who she is, Ryan replied coldly. The question is, what did you think you were doing when you invited her here? Richard's face flushed red. It was just a joke, Ryan. A harmless prank. How was I supposed to know she would clean up so well? A harmless prank? Ryan's voice was dangerously quiet. You invited a hard-working woman to a formal event with the intention of humiliating her for your own amusement. You wanted to mock someone who has been doing honest work to support herself and her family. Explain to me how that's harmless. She's just a cleaning lady, for Christ's sake. Since when do you care about the help? The words were barely out of Richard's mouth before Ryan grabbed his brother's arm, his grip tight enough to make Richard wince. Let me make something very clear to you, Ryan said, his voice low and controlled but filled with fury. That woman has more class, intelligence, and dignity in her little finger than you have in your entire body. She has a business degree, speaks knowledgeably about policy and social issues, and has shown more grace under pressure tonight than you've shown in your entire privileged life. Ryan, you're making a scene, Richard protested, glancing around nervously at the other guests. No, Richard. You made a scene when you decided to invite someone to this event for the purpose of mocking them. You made a scene when you thought it would be entertaining to watch another human being struggle for your amusement. Ryan released his brother's arm but stepped closer, his voice becoming even more intense. Here's what's going to happen. You are going to go over there and apologize to Jasmine for your cruel intentions. You are going to do it sincerely and publicly. And then you are going to think very carefully about whether this is the kind of person you want to be. And if I refuse? Richard asked defiantly. Then you can start looking for a new job, Ryan replied without hesitation. Because I will not have someone with your lack of character representing this company or this family. Richard stared at his brother in shock. You can't be serious. You'd fire your own brother over some cleaning lady? I'd fire my own brother for being a cruel, petty person who thinks someone's worth is determined by their job title, Ryan corrected. And Richard? Her name is Jasmine. Use it. The two brothers stared at each other for a long moment, the tension between them obvious to anyone watching. Finally, Richard's shoulders sagged in defeat. Fine, he muttered. I'll apologize. Publicly, Ryan reminded him. And sincerely. As they walked back toward where Jasmine was holding court with a growing group of interested guests, Ryan felt a surge of pride watching her handle the attention with grace and intelligence. She was answering questions about her background and her thoughts on various social issues with the confidence of someone who belonged in any room she entered. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard called out, his voice carrying across that section of the ballroom. "Could I have your attention for a moment?" The conversations quieted as people turned to listen. Jasmine looked up with a questioning expression, unsure what was coming next. "I owe Miss Washington a public apology," Richard continued, his voice strained but clear. "I invited her here tonight with less than honorable intentions, and I was completely wrong. Miss Washington has shown herself to be a woman of remarkable intelligence, grace, and dignity, and I deeply regret my poor judgment." The silence that followed was deafening. Several guests looked shocked, others appeared impressed by the unexpected apology, and a few seemed scandalized by the admission of the original cruel intent. Jasmine stood up slowly, her expression calm and composed. "Thank you for the apology, Mr. Sterling. I accept it." The simple, dignified response seemed to diffuse the tension in the room. Conversations gradually resumed, though many guests were clearly reassessing everything they thought they knew about the evening's events. Ryan moved to Jasmine's side, taking her hand in his. "You handled that beautifully," he murmured. "I've had practice dealing with difficult people," she replied with a slight smile. "Though I have to say, this is the first time someone has apologized for trying to humiliate me." "It won't be the last time someone underestimates you," Ryan said. "But I have a feeling you're going to spend the rest of your life proving them wrong." As the evening continued, Jasmine found herself genuinely enjoying the conversations and connections she was making. The revelation of her true background seemed to have made her more interesting to many of the guests, not less. Several people approached her with genuine business opportunities and invitations to future events. But most importantly, Ryan never left her side, making it clear to everyone in the room that whatever had started as Richard's cruel joke had become something entirely different and entirely real. The gala was winding down as midnight approached, but the energy around Jasmine and Ryan remained electric. They had spent the remainder of the evening moving through the crowd together, and Jasmine had found herself fielding job offers, consulting opportunities, and invitations to serve on nonprofit boards. Word had spread quickly through the city's elite circles about the remarkable woman who had turned Richard Sterling's cruel joke into a triumph of dignity and grace. "I can't believe this is happening," Jasmine whispered to Ryan as they stood near the bar, watching the crowd begin to thin out. "6 hours ago, I was just trying to survive one evening. Now people are offering me careers. You're surprised that people recognize talent when they see it?" Ryan asked with a smile. "Jasmine, you've impressed everyone you've talked to tonight. They're not offering you opportunities out of pity. They're offering them because you've proven you deserve them." Dr. Williams approached them one final time before leaving. "Jasmine, I meant what I said earlier. Please call my office first thing Monday morning. I'd like to discuss bringing you in as a consultant on our new urban education initiative. The perspective you shared tonight is exactly what our programs need." After she left, Jasmine shook her head in amazement. "A week ago, I was invisible. Tonight, I feel like I can't take a step without someone wanting to talk to me." "You were never invisible," Ryan said gently. "You were just in the wrong place for people to see who you really are." As the last guests began making their way to the exits, Ryan took Jasmine's hand and led her back out to the terrace. The city lights sparkled below them, and the cool night air was a welcome relief after the warmth of the crowded ballroom. "So," Ryan said, leaning against the railing beside her, "how do you feel about everything that's happened tonight?" Jasmine was quiet for a moment, processing the whirlwind of emotions and experiences. "Grateful," she said finally. "Overwhelmed. A little scared." "Scared of what?" "Of this not being real," she admitted. "Of waking up tomorrow and finding out this was all just a dream. Of discovering that you're going to change your mind about everything." Ryan turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "Jasmine, I need you to understand something. What happened tonight isn't some fairy tale that's going to disappear at midnight. This is real. You are remarkable, and everyone who met you tonight saw that. But what about the job offer? What about? She gestured between them, this? Whatever this is. The job offer stands because you're qualified for it and because our company needs someone with your skills and perspective, Ryan said firmly. It has nothing to do with my personal feelings for you. And your personal feelings? Jasmine asked quietly. Ryan stepped closer, reaching up to cup her face gently in his hands. My personal feelings are that I've never met anyone like you. You're intelligent, beautiful, strong, and genuine in a way that's rare in my world. I'd like very much to get to know you better, if you're willing. Jasmine felt her heart racing. Ryan, we come from completely different worlds. You're a billionaire CEO, and I'm a woman who's been cleaning offices to pay the bills. How could this possibly work? Maybe it won't, Ryan said honestly. Maybe we'll discover that we're too different, or that the obstacles are too great. But maybe we'll discover that the things we have in common are more important than the things that separate us. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Jasmine, I've spent years dating women who were considered appropriate by society's standards. Women from the right families, with the right connections, the right backgrounds. And not one of them ever made me feel the way I felt tonight, dancing with you. How did you feel? She whispered. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, Ryan replied. Like I had found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Jasmine closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. This is crazy. 24 hours ago, you didn't even know I existed. 24 hours ago, I was living half a life, Ryan said. Going through the motions, doing what was expected of me, but never really connecting with anyone or anything. Tonight, for the first time in years, I felt fully alive. When Jasmine opened her eyes, she saw her own hopes and fears reflected in his gaze. What if people say you're just having a moment of rebellion? What if they say you're only interested in me because I'm different from the women you usually date? Then they don't know me very well, Ryan replied. And they definitely don't know you. Jasmine, you're not some exotic curiosity or rebellion against my upbringing. You're a brilliant, accomplished woman who happens to have had different experiences than I have. That makes you interesting, not inferior. The sound of the cleaning crew beginning to set up in the ballroom behind them reminded Jasmine of the life she was supposedly leaving behind. What about my current job? I can't just abandon my responsibilities. We'll figure it out, Ryan said. Maybe you give notice gradually, transitioning into the new position over a few weeks. Maybe we provide temporary coverage while you make the change. There are solutions to practical problems, Jasmine. The only question that really matters is whether you want to try. Jasmine looked out at the city lights, thinking about everything that had brought her to this moment. The years of struggle, the sacrifices, the feeling of being invisible and undervalued. Tonight had shown her that she had been settling for far less than she deserved. I'm terrified, she admitted. Of what, specifically? Of hoping for too much. Of believing that I deserve this and then having it taken away. Of disappointing you when you realize I'm not as amazing as you think I am tonight. Ryan laughed softly. Jasmine, you survived your mother's illness, put yourself through college, worked multiple jobs to support your family, and tonight you walked into a room full of strangers with the intention of proving your worth, and you succeeded brilliantly. If you can do all that, you can handle whatever comes next. He took her hands in his. But I need you to know that I'm not offering you a job or asking you out because I feel sorry for you or because I want to save you. I'm doing it because you're extraordinary, and because I'd be a fool to let you walk out of my life. Jasmine felt the last of her defenses crumbling. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. Okay, I want to try. The job, getting to know you better, all of it. I'm still scared, but I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions for me. Ryan's smile was radiant. In that case, would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow night? Somewhere quiet where we can talk without an audience. I'd like that very much. As if on cue, the town car Jasmine had hired for the evening pulled up to the curb below. Ryan walked her down to the street, his hand warm and steady on her back. "This has been the most incredible evening of my life," Jasmine said as they reached the car. "Mine too," Ryan replied. He opened the car door for her, then leaned down to speak quietly. "Jasmine, I want you to promise me something." "What's that?" "Promise me that when you wake up tomorrow morning, you won't convince yourself that tonight was too good to be true. Promise me you'll remember that you deserve every good thing that happened, and everything good that's still to come." Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes again, but these were tears of joy rather than fear. "I promise." Ryan squeezed her hand one final time. "I'll pick you up at 7 tomorrow. And Jasmine? Thank you for giving me the most perfect evening I've ever had." As the car pulled away from the curb, Jasmine turned to watch Ryan through the rear window. He stood on the sidewalk until she was out of sight, his hands in his pockets and a smile on his face. For the first time in years, Jasmine allowed herself to believe that her life was about to change for the better. And this time, she was ready for it. Sunday morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through Jasmine's small apartment window. She woke up slowly, for a moment wondering if the previous evening had been an elaborate dream. But the emerald dress hanging carefully in her closet and the business cards tucked into her purse confirmed that everything had actually happened. Jasmine made coffee and sat at her small kitchen table, spreading out the business cards and contact information she had collected the night before. Dr. Williams, 3 nonprofit directors, 2 consulting firms, and a venture capitalist who was interested in funding social impact startups. Each card represented an opportunity she couldn't have imagined just 24 hours earlier. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Ryan. "Good morning. I hope you slept well. Still on for dinner tonight? I can't wait to continue our conversation." Jasmine smiled as she typed back, "Good morning. Yes, definitely looking forward to it. Thank you for an incredible evening." His response came quickly, "The pleasure was all mine. See you at 7. After breakfast, Jasmine called her mother, needing to share the extraordinary turn her life had taken. "Baby, you sound different," her mother said immediately. "Lighter somehow. What's happened?" Jasmine told her everything, the cruel invitation, the decision to attend, the transformation, and most importantly, meeting Ryan and the job opportunity that had emerged from the evening. "Oh my goodness," her mother breathed when Jasmine finished the story. "Honey, this sounds like something out of a movie." "I know it does. I keep waiting for someone to tell me it was all a mistake." "Listen to me, Jasmine," her mother's voice became firm. "This isn't a mistake. This is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You've been ready for something like this for years, you just needed the right moment to show the world who you really are. But what if I mess it up? What if I'm not good enough for this new job? What if Ryan realizes I'm not the woman he thinks I am? Baby girl, you are exactly the woman you showed them last night. That wasn't an act or a performance. That was you finally letting yourself shine. Don't you dare shrink back into hiding now." After they hung up, Jasmine spent the day researching Sterling Industries' corporate social responsibility programs, preparing for her dinner with Ryan. She wanted to come to the conversation with concrete ideas about how she could contribute to the company's mission. By 6:30, she had chosen a simple but elegant dress, navy blue with clean lines that suggested professionalism while still being appropriate for dinner. She styled her hair in a softer version of the previous night's updo and applied minimal makeup. Tonight wasn't about transformation, it was about being herself. Ryan arrived promptly at 7, looking handsome but more relaxed than he had in his formal tuxedo. He wore dark jeans, a white button-down shirt, and a navy blazer that brought out the green in his eyes. "You look beautiful," he said when she opened the door. "Though I have to say, I like seeing you in your own element." "This is definitely more me than last night's glamour," Jasmine agreed, grabbing her purse. "Though I have to admit, it was fun playing dress-up for an evening. Ryan had chosen a small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where they could talk without interruption. The owner greeted Ryan warmly, clearly a regular customer, and seated them at a corner table with soft lighting and privacy. "So," Ryan said after they had ordered wine and appetizers, "tell me about your ideas for the community outreach position." Jasmine pulled out a small notebook where she had written her thoughts. "I've been researching your current programs, and I think there's an opportunity to create more measurable impact while also building stronger community partnerships." For the next hour, they discussed business strategy, social impact metrics, and innovative approaches to corporate responsibility. Ryan listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and building on her ideas. Jasmine found herself becoming more animated as the conversation progressed, excited to finally be using her education and business skills in a meaningful way. "You've clearly put a lot of thought into this," Ryan said when she finished outlining her preliminary program proposal. "These ideas could revolutionize how we approach community engagement." "I'm impressed, but not surprised." "Thank you," Jasmine said, closing her notebook. "I have to admit, it feels incredible to be discussing work that actually matters to me. For so long, I've been focused on just surviving that I forgot how much I love strategic thinking and problem solving." "What made you choose business as a major?" Ryan asked as their main courses arrived. "I wanted to understand how systems work," Jasmine replied thoughtfully. "Growing up, I saw how economic disadvantage affected my community, but I also saw how the right programs and resources could make a real difference. I thought if I understood business principles, I could help create more effective solutions. And then life got in the way." Jasmine nodded. "My mother's diagnosis came right as I was starting my job search. The medical bills were overwhelming, and I needed income immediately. Cleaning jobs were available and paid weekly, so that's what I took. I told myself it was temporary." "What changed? What made you decide to come to the gala instead of just ignoring Richard's invitation?" Jasmine set down her fork, considering the question. "Hearing them laugh about me in that conference room was a wake-up call. For years, I had been so focused on just getting by that I had forgotten who I used to be. I had let circumstances define me instead of defining myself." She looked directly at Ryan. "I realized I was tired of being invisible. Tired of letting other people's assumptions about my worth go unchallenged. I decided that if they wanted to see me as entertainment, I was going to give them a show they would never forget. And instead, you reminded everyone, including yourself, of who you really are." "Exactly. Though I have to admit, meeting you wasn't part of the plan." Ryan smiled. "The best things in life rarely are. Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Are you worried about what people will say about us? About the CEO dating someone who used to clean his building?" Jasmine had been dreading this conversation, but she appreciated his directness. "Yes," she said honestly. "I'm worried people will think you're slumming it, or that I'm using you to improve my situation. I'm worried about office gossip and social media speculation." "And how do you want to handle that?" "I don't know," Jasmine admitted. "I've never been in a situation like this before." "How do you want to handle it?" Ryan leaned forward, his expression serious. "I want to handle it by being completely honest about what this is. We're two adults who met and discovered we have a genuine connection. Your background and mine are different, but that doesn't make either of us less worthy of happiness." He reached across the table to take her hand. "Jasmine, I've been thinking about this all day. I don't want to hide what's happening between us, but I also don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. How would you feel about being open about our relationship while being very clear that your job offer stands regardless of our personal connection?" "You mean, make it obvious that I earned the position on my own merit?" "Exactly. Because you did. The woman I met last night, the ideas you've shared tonight, that's not someone I'm helping out of pity. That's someone I'm lucky to work with and even luckier to know personally. Jasmine felt a warmth spread through her chest. I think I can handle being open about it, as long as we're both committed to keeping work and personal life appropriately separate. Absolutely. Though I have to warn you, once word gets out that we're together, you're going to be the subject of a lot of curiosity and attention. More than I was last night. Ryan laughed. Point taken. You handled that beautifully, by the way. I was impressed by how you dealt with Richard's apology. I had a choice, Jasmine said simply. I could hold on to anger and resentment, or I could accept his apology and move forward. Holding on to anger would only hurt me. That's a very mature perspective. My mother taught me that. She says forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook for their actions. It's about freeing yourself from carrying their mistakes around. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily from professional topics to personal stories. Ryan told her about growing up with wealth but feeling pressure to prove himself worthy of the family business. Jasmine shared stories about her college years and the dreams she had been forced to postpone. Can I tell you something? Ryan said as they finished dessert. I was married before. Divorced 3 years ago. Jasmine felt a flutter of concern. What happened? We were together because it made sense on paper. Similar backgrounds, shared social circles, compatible life goals. But there was never any real connection, any genuine partnership. We were like two people living parallel lives who happened to share the same address. He looked directly at her. What I felt last night, what I'm feeling now, this is completely different. This feels real in a way I've never experienced before. Jasmine's heart raced. Ryan, this is all happening so fast. A week ago, we didn't even know each other existed. I know it's fast. But sometimes you know. Sometimes you meet someone and everything just clicks into place. What if it doesn't work out? What if we try this and discover we're too different after all? Then we'll have tried, Ryan said simply. We'll have been honest about what we felt and given it our best effort. But Jasmine, what if it does work out? What if we're exactly what each other has been looking for? As they left the restaurant, Ryan walked her to his car. I have a confession to make, he said as they stood on the sidewalk. What's that? I drove by your building this morning. Sterling Industries. I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that you've been there all this time, and I never noticed you. I kept wondering what other amazing people I've overlooked because I wasn't paying attention. Jasmine smiled. You can't notice everyone, Ryan. Besides, I was good at being invisible. It was safer that way. But you're not invisible anymore. No, she agreed, looking up at him in the soft glow of the streetlights. I'm not. Ryan stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. Jasmine, I'd very much like to kiss you right now, if that would be okay with you. Instead of answering, she rose up on her toes and kissed him first. It was soft and sweet and perfect, full of promise and new beginnings. When they broke apart, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, he whispered. Fast and hard and completely. I'm falling too, Jasmine whispered back. And for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of where I might land. As Ryan drove her home, Jasmine thought about how much her life had changed in just 2 days. She had gone from invisible cleaning lady to corporate executive to the woman who had captured the heart of one of the city's most eligible bachelors. But more importantly, she had remembered who she really was underneath all the circumstances that had tried to define her. She was brilliant, capable, worthy of love and success and happiness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities. There would be curious colleagues, media attention, and the pressure of proving herself in a new role. But tonight, she was simply a woman who had found something beautiful and real with a man who saw her true worth. For the first time in years, Jasmine's future looked limitless. 3 months later, Jasmine sat in her new office on the 35th floor of Sterling Industries, reviewing the quarterly report for the community outreach programs she had redesigned. The numbers were impressive. Participation in educational initiatives was up 40%, community partnerships had doubled, and the feedback from program participants was overwhelmingly positive. A soft knock on her door interrupted her concentration. "Come in," she called, looking up to see Ryan standing in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee and a smile that still made her heart skip a beat. "Good morning, Ms. Washington," he said formally, though his eyes were twinkling with amusement. "I brought you your usual coffee." "Why thank you, Mr. Morgan," she replied, playing along with their office routine. "How very professional of you." Ryan closed the door behind him and immediately dropped the formal act, moving around her desk to give her a proper good morning kiss. "How's the report coming along?" "Better than I expected," Jasmine said, leaning into his embrace. "I think the board is going to be very pleased with these results." "I'm sure they will be. You've accomplished more in 3 months than we managed in the previous 2 years." Jasmine smiled at the praise, though she had long since stopped being surprised by her own success. The transition from cleaning lady to corporate executive had been smoother than anyone expected, largely because she approached the work with a combination of business acumen and genuine understanding of the communities they served. "Speaking of the board meeting," Ryan said, settling into the chair across from her desk, "are you ready for the presentation this afternoon?" "As ready as I can be. Though I have to admit, I'm still not entirely comfortable being the center of attention in those meetings." "You'll be fine. Just remember, you belong in that room because you've earned it, not because of who you're dating." It was a reminder they both needed sometimes. The past 3 months had brought intense media scrutiny, office gossip, and constant speculation about their relationship. Some people still whispered that Jasmine was a gold digger who had manipulated her way into Ryan's life and a corporate position. Others suggested that Ryan was going through a rebellious phase and would eventually come to his senses. But the results spoke for themselves. Jasmine's programs were successful, her team respected her leadership, and she had proven herself to be exactly what Sterling Industries needed in the community outreach role. "Any word from your mother about her visit next week?" Ryan asked, changing the subject to something that made them both smile. "She's very excited. Though she keeps asking if she needs to buy new clothes to meet my fancy boyfriend." Jasmine laughed. "I told her you're just going to love her exactly as she is." "Of course I will. She raised the most amazing woman I know." Jasmine's mother had made a full recovery from her cancer treatments, and the financial stress that had dominated their lives for years was finally behind them. Jasmine's new salary meant she could pay for the best medical care while also starting to save for the future. "Have you thought any more about Dr. Williams' offer?" Ryan asked. Dr. Williams had approached Jasmine about starting a consulting firm focused on corporate social responsibility, with several major companies already interested in her services. It would mean leaving Sterling Industries eventually, but it would also mean building something entirely her own. "I'm interested, but I want to finish what I started here first," Jasmine said. "I think another year or 2 of corporate experience would be valuable before I venture out on my own." "I support whatever you decide," Ryan said. "Though I have to admit, I'll miss having you just down the hall from my office." "You'll survive," Jasmine teased. "Besides, we'll still have evenings and weekends." Their relationship had continued to deepen over the past 3 months. They had learned to navigate the challenges of dating while working for the same company, maintaining professional boundaries during business hours while building a strong personal connection outside the office. "Actually, that brings me to something I wanted to discuss with you," Ryan said, his tone becoming more serious. "What's that?" "My lease is up for renewal next month, and I've been thinking about making some changes to my living situation." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "What kind of changes?" "The kind that might involve a certain brilliant, beautiful community outreach director moving in with me, if she were interested." Jasmine's heart fluttered. They had been spending most nights together anyway, alternating between his penthouse apartment and her modest place. But moving in together felt like a significant step forward in their relationship. "That's a big decision," she said carefully. "It is," Ryan agreed. "But I love you, Jasmine. I love waking up next to you, I love coming home to you, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. I want to build something real and lasting with you." "I love you too," Jasmine said softly. "More than I ever thought possible. But are you sure about this? Are you sure about us?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," Ryan replied without hesitation. "I know we come from different backgrounds, and I know some people will always have opinions about our relationship. But what we have is real, Jasmine. It's built on respect and genuine caring and shared values." He reached across the desk to take her hand. "You make me want to be a better man. You challenge me to think differently about business, about social responsibility, about what really matters in life. I was successful before I met you, but I wasn't truly happy. Now I am." Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. "You know what you've given me? You've given me back myself. For years, I let circumstances define who I was. You reminded me that I'm worthy of success and happiness and love. So is that a yes to moving in together?" "That's a yes," Jasmine said, laughing as Ryan came around the desk to lift her up in a celebratory hug. A few hours later, Jasmine stood at the front of the Sterling Industries boardroom, presenting her quarterly results to the company's directors. The room was filled with powerful business leaders, the same type of people who had once been completely outside her world. But as she spoke about community partnerships and educational outcomes, Jasmine felt completely at ease. She belonged in this room, not because of who she was dating, but because of what she had accomplished. "The numbers speak for themselves," she concluded, clicking to her final slide. "Our community programs are not only making a real difference in people's lives, but they're also strengthening Sterling Industries' reputation and creating valuable business relationships." The applause was genuine and sustained. Board members asked thoughtful questions about expanding the programs and replicating them in other markets. Dr. Patricia Williams, who had been invited as a special guest, beamed with pride at her former gala conversation partner's success. After the meeting, Richard Sterling approached Jasmine as she packed up her presentation materials. Their relationship had been professional but distant since the gala, with Richard clearly still embarrassed about his original cruel intentions. "Jasmine," he said quietly, "I wanted to tell you how impressed I am with what you've accomplished here. Your work has exceeded everyone's expectations." "Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. I also wanted to say, I'm glad my stupid joke backfired the way it did. You and Ryan are good for each other, and you've been good for this company." It was the closest thing to a real apology Jasmine expected to get from him, and she accepted it graciously. "We all make mistakes, Richard. What matters is what we learn from them." That evening, Jasmine and Ryan celebrated her successful presentation and their decision to move in together with dinner at the same Italian restaurant where they'd had their first real date. The owner, who had become familiar with their regular visits, sent over a complimentary bottle of champagne when he learned about their news. "A toast," Ryan said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings and the courage to change your life. To second chances and refusing to settle for less than you deserve," Jasmine added. As they clinked glasses, Jasmine thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. A year ago, she had been invisible, forgotten, dismissed as just another piece of the background. Tonight, she was successful, loved, and looking forward to a future full of possibility. The cruel joke that Richard Sterling had planned as entertainment had instead become the catalyst for the greatest transformation of her life. She had walked into that gala as a cleaning lady pretending to be something more. She had walked out as a woman who finally understood her own worth. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "Just how crazy life can be," Jasmine replied. "How one moment, one decision, one evening can change absolutely everything. Do you regret anything?" Any part of the path that brought you here? Jasmine considered the question seriously. The years of struggle, the financial stress, the feeling of being invisible and undervalued, it had all been difficult. But it had also made her strong, resilient, and deeply grateful for the opportunities she now had. No, she said finally. I don't regret any of it. Every challenge I faced, every setback, every moment when I felt like giving up, it all led me here. It all led me to you. Ryan smiled and leaned across the table to kiss her. I love you, Jasmine Washington. I love you too, Ryan Morgan. As they walked hand in hand back to his car, Jasmine caught their reflection in a shop window. They looked like exactly what they were. A successful couple in love, comfortable with themselves and each other, ready to face whatever the future might bring. The girl who had once cleaned offices at night to pay her bills was gone. In her place was a confident, accomplished woman who had learned that she deserved every good thing life had to offer. And this was just the beginning. 6 months later, the local newspaper ran a feature story about Sterling Industries' community outreach programs, with a photo of Jasmine at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new educational center. The caption read, Jasmine Washington, Director of Community Outreach, celebrates the opening of the Sterling Foundation Learning Center, which has already served over 500 local students. But the real celebration happened that evening, when Ryan surprised Jasmine with a candlelit dinner on the terrace of their shared penthouse apartment. As the sun set over the city, he got down on one knee and asked her to marry him with a ring that sparkled almost as brightly as her smile when she said yes. The cleaning lady who had been invited to a gala as a joke had become a successful executive, a respected community leader, and the future wife of the man who had seen her true worth from the very beginning. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories start with the cruelest intentions. And sometimes, when you finally stop hiding who you really are, the whole world opens up to embrace you. Jasmine Washington had finally learned to stop being invisible. And the life she built in the light was more beautiful than anything she had ever dared to dream.